They will all do the same amount of exercise and their macro breakdown is the same, meaning the amount of protein, carbs, and fats. So pretty much everything the same, right? So which lady do you think is in the best position to lose the most weight within that time frame, given they're actually consuming that recommended energy or macro intake? So basically, they all follow directions and hit their goals. Do you struggle to maintain weight loss but desperately want to feel good in your own skin, confident in your clothes, and improve your overall health? If so, you're home. Hey, I'm Sam, dietitian, specialist in weight management, and former functioning fat girl. I learned the secret of how to lose and maintain weight by simply nourishing my life well. If you're ready for the sustainable nutrition strategies, consistent habits, and freedom from a self-sabotaging mindset, grab your water bottle and let's go. Before we get started on today's amazing episode, I just want to remind you that if you're not subscribed to my email list yet, you're missing out. I'll be breaking down the most important points of these podcast episodes, providing you with a healthy recipe of the week or a favorite meal prep tip, and give you first dibs on any new offers or programs I'm running. This is the best way to stay in contact with me, and I'd also really love it if you sent in ideas for topics to get into on the podcast. So don't miss out and go ahead and click the link in the show notes to subscribe to Anchored Living, my email newsletter. Okay, let's dive into the episode. Okay, story time. 3 women want to lose weight. They're all female, clearly. Same height, same weight, same age, same everything. I calculate their daily energy, aka calorie needs, to put them in a deficit for healthy weight loss. These ladies need to stick between 1,600 and 1,800 calories to put them in an appropriate deficit for approximately 90 days. One woman will meet those needs with 3 meals plus 0 to 2 snacks per day. One woman will meet those needs with 4 to 6 smaller, more frequent meals throughout the day. And the last woman will meet those needs with an 8-hour intermittent, that word is hard to say, intermittent fasting window. They will all do the same amount of exercise and their macro breakdown is the same, meaning the amount of protein, carbs, and fats. So pretty much everything the same, right? So which lady do you think is in the best position to lose the most weight within that time frame, given they're actually consuming that recommended energy or macro intake? So basically, they all follow directions and hit their goals. Well, let's talk it out. First, those are 3 different eating patterns. They're not diets, they're patterns of eating. So they're all on the same, like, quote unquote diet. They're just eating that diet within different patterns. So let's get into the differences between these 3 specific patterns. The first one being 3 main meals plus 0 to 2 snacks. That would be composed of, our traditional breakfast, lunch, and dinner, along with planned or intentional snacks as needed. So, for example, if you're going longer than 4 to 5 hours in between meals, you would have a snack. If you're feeling hungry in between meals, you'd have a snack. Or if it's necessary to meet your energy or macronutrient needs, you would, put an intentional snack in there. So let's look at the pros and the cons of this trad pattern. As the kids these days are saying, the traditional pattern of eating. Some pros would be most people are already accustomed to eating this way. This is how most of us are raised, right? It allows space to consume a bigger volume of food at one time, so it can be helpful for more volume eaters, for people who like to have a nice hearty meal. They're more efficient and convenient time-wise. So most people already get like a lunch hour or main big break in their workday, and it's not very restrictive feeling. So if meals are made up of the appropriate balance of whole foods, as we have discussed in previous episodes, remember those good lean proteins, fibrous fruits and veggies, and healthy fats, we are then less likely to feel hungry in between our meals, and it feels more satisfying or satiating throughout the day. It fits into social settings well, so typically, hey, you want to go to brunch, you want to go out to dinner, you want to, go to lunch or whatever. We have a lot of, let's say, retired folks here in South Florida, and I do chat with a lot of people in that age bracket, and one of the biggest things that they do socially is go out to lunch or go out to dinner. And when you're eating in that more traditional type of pattern, it allows for those social settings, and you can kind of make that work within your day. Some drawbacks or cons to that traditional pattern of eating is that people with smaller appetites or smaller stomachs, so bariatric patients, especially in those first couple years after bariatric surgery, anybody who is on a weight loss medication, especially the injectables that are very popular right now, someone unfortunately going through an illness of some kind that just doesn't have a big appetite, taking any kind of medications, like for example, cancer treatment or drug and alcohol recovery, especially in those early initial like detox stages of recovery. People can be going through a lot of GI upset and issues, and so it can be difficult for them to eat a lot at one time. And I'm sure there's a million more situations that I could go on about, but those are the main things that come to mind at the moment. Also, certain work or job schedules, the hours may not allow for regular meal times, or it could be chaotic, like very high intensity job settings, like an acute medical or healthcare setting, first responders, like our amazing police force, paramedics, firefighters, they kind of have to be able to go at a moment's notice, and obviously they're not able to stop in the middle of a situation and be like, excuse me, this is my break time. I'm somebody that works in, goodness, every time I go downstairs into the emergency department at the hospital that I work in, I'm just blown away by how high intensity it is, how insane and chaotic it is. So all of the people working in the settings like that in any hospital, really, the nursing staff in particular, it can be really chaotic, and just no day is ever the same. So it's hard to kind of plan for those meal times or meals and stuff. And, obviously, if the crap hits the fan, then and you have a long day of chaos and you don't get a chance to eat anything, now that day is kind of ruined. So that traditional breakfast, lunch, and dinner doesn't always work into people's schedules like that. Life situations like new moms or just new parents in general, again, chaotic, caretakers of older parents, siblings, whoever, people who have to put others' needs first, it, may not allow for, and this isn't for everybody, but it just is one of the situations where it may not work to try to be eating in that traditional pattern. Okay, so the next pattern would be those 4 to 6 smaller, more frequent meals throughout the day. That had a time frame where it had its 15 minutes of fame for a while there during the height of, I think, 90s, early 2000s diet culture, where it was no, you shouldn't only be eating a couple of meals. The real key is to be eating smaller, more frequent meals throughout the day. So what that means is you can look at them as meals or fuelings, however you want to look at them. It's not your typical breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It would be meal 1, meal 2, meal 3, 4, 5, whatever it is. Every 2 to 3 hours, you're consuming something. So some of the pros surrounding that would be what we call in alcohol and drug recovery a never hungry, never full philosophy. So you're just always kind of satisfied. You have less triggers. You're never getting to the point of being hangry, and you're never getting to the point of being overly stuffed where you gotta unbutton your pants or roll over and take a nap. Mentally, this can be very good because it can. Now, again, remember, the caveat to all of this is that every person is different. So it could go either way for each person, and I'll get to the point of that at the end. So mentally, it can help with food noise and kind of keep the food noise under wraps because you are consistently taking something in throughout the day. So you don't really ever get to that point of being feeling kind of anxious and thinking about you want to eat food because you're eating fairly regularly throughout the day. If those meal times or fuelings are made up of the appropriate balance of those whole foods that we talked about. It's good for blood sugar balance and regulation, keeps us off that blood sugar roller coaster of highs and lows. It's a good pattern for people who are natural grazers. That word is kind of vilified in the world of bariatrics because we're, kind of told to not be grazers, but I think that there's a way to do it wisely, and so this would be the situation. So people who are naturally inclined to more of a grazing pattern throughout the day, it's easier to modify that from just kind of nonchalant grazing and into fitting into your energy and macro needs and kind of planning for intentional grazing, if that makes sense. So it still allows for that pattern, but all of those graze points are kind of planned for and accounted for. Good situations or career job situations for this would be desk jobs or work from home. I get a lot of clients who tell me that it's so hard for them. They work from home, they're just sitting in front of the computer all day, the kitchen is right there, and they just feel kind of called to be going back and forth and grabbing stuff all day long. So this type of an eating pattern can be helpful there because it does kind of allow you to eat more frequently throughout the day. Again, the drug and alcohol treatment situation, in early recovery, that can be a perfect time for more of a graze pattern like that. The never hungry, never full. People who have smaller appetites due to either surgery or the injectables, those types of things. This could be a great way to still meet energy and macro needs, but without feeling like you're kind of forcing yourself to eat more than you want to be eating, or more than you can eat, really, physically can eat. Some drawbacks or cons to this is it can be inconvenient if you don't have the time to be stopping and eating that often. Certain schedules just don't allow for it. Planning and preparation can feel daunting for trying to plan for 6 separate fuelings throughout the day. It doesn't have to be, but it can feel that way. Some people don't like to feel full or satisfied all day. They like to get to the point of hearing their own natural hunger cues and saying, oh, okay, I feel empty, I feel hungry, it's time to eat. It can potentially exacerbate the food noise because you're always thinking about what the next meal is going to be since you have so many of them throughout the day. And it can kind of be annoying if you're tracking all of your intake. Again, it doesn't have to be, but it can feel that way if you have to stop and kind of track everything that you're having throughout the day. And then our third scenario could be 10 episodes in and of itself, but it's intermittent fasting. I'm unclear as to why that's difficult for me to say, but intermittent fasting. And specifically in this example, the most common way of doing intermittent fasting is an 8 to 10 hour feeding window. So meaning you're only eating 8 to 10 hours or within 8 to 10 hours throughout the day. Okay. You are not eating any food any other time of the day. Now there's lots of people who have lots of different time frames where some people go all the way down to like 2 to 4 hour feeding windows. Some people go all the way up to 12 to 14 hour feeding windows. But the most common way that intermittent fasting is kind of plugged as like this, miracle to lose weight is that 8 to 10 hour time frame. Okay, so the pros of only eating within an 8 to 10 hour time frame is that it can help to maintain a calorie deficit by avoiding certain times of the day that tend to be those binge or snack trigger times. So, for example, the evenings where a lot of people really struggle and they, want to be kind of just tuning out and snacking and scrolling. It works well for people in high intensity jobs, those, first responder type of jobs that we were talking about, where time doesn't always allow for breaks or food intake. It can be helpful for what I call the big meal people. So there are certain cultures and certain people who are just used to kind of that one big main meal in a day. And then they may have like, a little snack or two at another time, but it's one main big meal. And so people who are like volume eaters might benefit from this type of a pattern because you kind of have to eat a lot more at those meal times in order to get everything in. People who travel a lot, where a lot of their day is spent traveling and they just have like that one main meal. If you're tracking, it doesn't allow for any kind of extras or extra, like snacks here or there, because you have to make the most of that feeding window. So it can be helpful to keep it very specific and keep you on track. You can be flexible with the feeding windows. So, it doesn't have to be between this time and that time. Like if you're going 8 hours, whatever works best in your life for that feeding window to be, you can do it in that way. And it gives you some digestive rest in between your fuel or your feeding windows. It gives the gut kind of a break to chill out and rest a little bit. It can create that consistency, structure, routine. It really just simplifies everything. I don't want to go on too much of a tangent here, but I'll just say a very quick example. In the world of obesity, we have seen that a lot of the reason why what we call a very low calorie diet, when people are using meal replacements, so like drinking shakes instead of eating meals, those type of OptiFast diets where, they're unrealistic to maintain long term, but the reason why people like them in the moment is because it just makes things very simple. They know they're just going to drink that thing and then that's it. So eating in that 8-hour time frame can kind of simplify everything so much, where you're only having this 2 or 3 things within that 8-hour time frame, and you don't have to think about it any other time throughout the day. It can create clearer boundaries with food, so it builds trust with that consistency over time. And some of the cons of intermittent fasting windows, specifically 8 to 10 hours, it can encourage binging for some because it feels very restrictive, and it can cause anxiety about the feeding window. It's when we're restricting, it can feel depressing, and it can actually, in the end, cause a hanger binge episode. If you're only eating between this time and that time, and you're like kind of freaked out about it, you can go overboard during that. It can trigger irritability, mood swings, energy crashes, brain fog, dizziness and shakiness associated with like low blood sugar moments. It's not conducive to certain career or personal schedules, like for example, the evenings or weekend social settings, holidays, special occasions, or events. If your window stops at 5 p.m. and we do have holidays coming up. So, if it's 5 p.m. and you have a holiday party in the evening, meaning 5 p.m. is your cutoff time for your feeding window, and then you're going to a holiday party, it makes it so much more difficult to not participate, not consume anything at those types of social events. It's difficult to maintain, for all of those reasons. It's very difficult to maintain for the long term. And if you're not going to be able to maintain it for the long term, then it's likely not the eating pattern for you. It can cause blood sugar disruptions and imbalances, especially if the macro balance of those feedings are off. And it can result in the body not getting enough. So this is the biggest thing about intermittent fasting, and what my biggest concern is for people that do it is, are you even able to meet your energy or macro needs during that time? I think for those of us who kind of naturally are inclined to go for the all or nothing thinking, we think that, if we're trying to lose weight, then the less that we eat, the better. And that's just not the case. Smaller appetites, people with time constraints, etc., still need to meet their energy and macro needs. So too big of a calorie deficit can create a whole host of other issues. Despite most people wanting to lose weight as quickly as possible, it's just, like I said, not conducive for long term and for your body's overall health and wellness. So malnutrition is not what we're going for. We're going for a healthy, appropriate calorie deficit. Being malnourished or not getting enough energy over time can actually cause your metabolism to slow, which is what we don't want. It can cause muscle wasting if we're not getting enough protein in consistently. We can be losing lean body mass or muscle. Additionally, if the intake is too low, it can lead to hormone disruptions. People trying to put muscle on, actually, it can reduce muscle protein synthesis or muscle building. So somebody who's actually trying to gain weight or build muscle, that can be a problem. It can cause sleep disruption if you're eating the majority of your calories like right before you go to sleep, but also if you're going to bed starving already. In particular, in the case of morning exercisers, if you work out first thing in the morning when you get up, and the last time you ate was 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 4 o'clock in the afternoon the day before, it can really kind of put you at risk for injury because it can lead to fatigue, dizziness, or, passing out, which can cause injury. So we don't want that to happen. And it just perpetuates that unhealthy all or nothing mindset that I just said we can kind of naturally have when we've struggled with our weight for the majority of our lives. Feelings of guilt and shame if we quote unquote fail or, don't meet that feeding window. If we keep going over it or whatever, it can cause us to fall into those guilt and shame practices, and it doesn't allow for flexibility and self-trust. So which one of our ladies is in position to lose the most weight? Going once, going twice? The answer is they all are. Similarly, by the way, each one of those ladies could do each of the 3 eating patterns for 90 days each, and their results would not be any different. So the bottom line is that there is zero, my friends, zero, let me say it louder, zero evidence to show any added benefit in terms of weight loss. Anyone can eat in any of those 3 patterns and lose the exact same amount of weight if they're meeting their energy or macro needs. There's no additional benefit. The benefit is the convenience of fitting it into your specific schedule so that you can maintain it for the long term. The reason restrictive diets don't work long term is because they're not realistic to maintain. So when I'm working with clients, we're a team, and together we determine the best pattern with which to get the energy or macro needs that I calculate for them. What matters above everything else for weight loss is a consistent calorie deficit. The recommendation is to not exceed a 500 to 750 calorie deficit, 1,000 at the very most, and getting adequate protein intake within the deficit. So if you're intermittent fasting, but within your 8-hour feeding window, you're consistently exceeding your deficit, you'll either not lose any weight and just stay the same, or you could even gain weight. It's not the pattern of intermittent fasting, it's the amount of calories that we're consuming. And then we blame it on, the pattern of eating. The intermittent fasting doesn't work for me, but the reality is that we were just eaten too many calories. Make sense? So sometimes finding the best eating pattern for you takes trial and error. If you try something and it's clear it's not working in your schedule, then we course correct and we change it up to find what the best pattern of eating is for you and for your goals. So to summarize, eating patterns are not diets. They're simply the pattern with which you nourish your body. There's no difference between any of them in terms of weight loss. If a person's healthy calorie deficit is, let's say, approximately 1,800 calories a day, they can meet those needs with any of the aforementioned 3 eating patterns and see the exact same results. So find what works best for your life and your schedule and focus on meeting your ideal energy and macro needs. I hope this was helpful information for you. I'll be attaching a handout summarizing the pros and cons of those 3 different eating patterns to the weekly email that's going out today. So if you're on my email list, you don't have to do anything but open your email. And if you're not on my email list, what the heck are you waiting for? Click the link in the show notes to sign up. You don't want to miss it. Have a beautiful, beautiful day, friends. Hey, friend, I really hope you feel empowered by this episode. If so, would you take 30 seconds and share it with another friend who needs it? Also, please leave a quick review for the show on Apple Podcasts. It brings me so much joy to know this podcast is helping you. Okay, time to go nourish well, aka eat some good food. I'll meet you back here next time for another episode. I love you and God loves you. Have a beautiful day.